Hello everybody, it is Mike Levin on Monday, February 13th, 2023, and I'm just driving around the roads of Staten Island right now at random, and I thought I'd shoot a video, almost like for old time's sake. I've had to do so little driving in my car of late that a certain kind of, soul-feeding video recording wasn't taking place. And so I thought I'd just head out in almost any direction. Seaview Farm Colony. There's so many weird things on Staten Island. I'm looking for the best way to balance this camera. I know there's going to be a best combination of like not bouncy and such, because this is not a very rigid, this is one of those springy arm things, so I have the tendency to dip it down and touch the dashboard a tiny bit. So right or left, I just choose a direction, as long as I don't keep choosing the same direction every time, or else I'll be going in circles. So this way up this direction is of more interest to me. I think it's a lot of swampland and stuff, a lot of undeveloped land still here on this island on which I live. And interesting place, a lot of history, not terribly far from where I grew up, right? I grew up close to Valley Forge, the stuff that people would know from their history, to put in relation to where, I was not born. I was actually born in New Jersey, and I was born 1970 in New Jersey. So I was born in both the time and the place where Unix was born. Unix in like January, and the following August was me. And so I feel Unix was in the air, and the spirit of Unix sort of infused into me. And I've flirted with it on and off over the years, greatly in the form of the Amiga computer operating system. And that is a preemptive, multitasking, multicolor, I guess you say, because back in the day, operating system. It's called Amiga OS, and there's a lot of different parts to it and words for it. There's a piece down in there called Intuition. There's command line interface and stuff like that. So it's all got blended together into this awesome platform that actually was not derived from Unix. And there wasn't even Linux back in those days. Linux came along in like 91, and the Amiga was like being developed in like, I guess 84, 85, I'm not exactly sure. But by 86 and 87, the Amiga was out in the form of the A1000. So it was inspired by the Trip OS, TRIP OS, Trip OS, which was an outgrowth of BCPL, which was a programming language that, played into the, what also led to C, right? BCPL was something in that lineage that simply made a way to compile the same code for different platforms. It was like virtualization, virtualized hardware, a hardware abstraction layer at the compile stage, right? Later on, in later years, Java, the Java programming language from Sun Microsystems, made this famous in the form of the Java Runtime Engine, or the Java Virtual Machine, JVM, JRE. Your acronyms may vary, but they put all the virtualization there in the runtime, and they made a semi-compiled form of code portable and runnable on any of those Java runtime engines. Well, long before that, BCPL and things like it that led to the C programming language, that led to the Amiga, that led to Unix, were using that same trick. But instead of at the runtime level, it was at the compile level. It virtualized and abstracted hardware at the compile level, so it could compile for a vast variety of different kinds of hardware, and thus was one of the driving forces behind Unix and Linux and, all the NIX operating systems, right? They're portable, interoperable operating systems, right? The standard that has been made for them is called POSIX, the Portable Operating System. Portable Interactive Operating. So, it can run on lots of things and it can talk to lots of things, especially other instances of things like itself. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a really magic combo to be able to do great things. And that's where I am focusing right now. And in fact, the world is really primed for it. The potential has been made in great part by Microsoft including Linux with Windows, and specifically by taking their latest and greatest version of that, which I guess the best name that comes to me is WSLG, the Windows subsystem for Linux, but the graphics version of it, WSLG. And that was only available on Windows 11, which was the smallest portion of the Microsoft installed user base. Most people are still on Windows 10. It used to be 2/3, right? 75%. Now it's slipping. It's something like 65%, right? Windows 11 gained another 10%, but as my buddy Mike Sin said in the Facebook post that I saw pointing that out, that's just inevitable because new machines ship with Windows 11 pre-installed. So Windows 11 replaces Windows 10 over time by attrition, would that be? Generational replacement of hardware wearing out. I'm sure there is a word for that. Okay. So, the world is changing rapidly. ChatGPT is upon us, and the world seems to not be waiting with bated breath for what Google is going to do, because it looks like a rapidly shoehorned response of one of the many projects which they have in the works, right? Lots of training models and, engines of different sorts. And they spun the wheel and it landed on one called Bard, or one that they nicknamed Bard. And in a rushed out announcement intended to come before the Microsoft Bing OpenAI, next gen Prometheus integration, Google made that ill-fated Bard announcement where they gave the James Webb telescope credit with making the first extrasolar planet observation, which is not true. As anyone into astronomy knows, we've been spotting planets long before the James Webb telescope went into operation. So, derpity derp, castles in clouds, diversified revenue streams. When you make too much of your money from one single thing, then you're vulnerable, especially if that single thing does not have customer lock-in. No customers are actually locked into using Google. Well, I mean, some are, but maybe I'll make a series of lessons on how to de-Googlify yourself. I mean, they have that thing where you export all your data like a to-go thing, but I think I could make a much more sane weaning yourself off Google. having scripts that you run locally in your home server that help transition things off of the Google servers and onto your own servers at home. Things such as Google Photos, moving all your photos and media of your life off of and out of the Google Cloud, except insofar as you'd like certain things there. And what else? It's interesting. I'm just looking around as I drive here. I just happened to be passing the mall. I didn't mean to do that, but just driving at random to get familiar with the roads on this island in ways that I really haven't done because I didn't grow up here. And my mapping, mapping, this kind of mapping, what is local, what is in muscle memory, it's very central to my technology messages. The first things you learn are special. It's like the roads that you learn to drive on growing up. You get familiar with certain roads and certain turns and certain stoplights, and you start to do them like it's automatic. You cease to think. And when you move to a new location where everything is new, you're on much higher alert. You're dedicating much more of your surface level awareness, your executive function, if you will, to every little move, every little driving move, eyes all over your head is the expression. And then when you're uprooted from that neighborhood you grew up in, for whatever reasons, I moved to New York and just followed career. All that mapping has to be remapped. There's a lot of remapping in tech, and it doesn't always go too well either. Things don't always map cleanly. There are many mapping techs, including nuances and methodologies and techniques to that mapping. It's not always one-to-one clean, and it's not always even like digital to digital. So things map in different ways, and there's often transformations, right? You hear all different words, right? Mapping is just one of the tools that you have in your toolbox when you transform data in one way or another. Mapping is using a lookup table. If something with this value comes in over here, send it out the other side, replacing it this way using a lookup table, replace it this way by putting it through a function. All kinds of different possibilities are there, especially in Python now that you've got, your standard if-else statements. You've now got your new switch filter statements under Python 3.10. And you also have your walrus operators that play into the picture as well, which have a value assignment on an if operator switch. So it's really quite nuts, the headiness, the variety of choices that are available to the developer choosing some sort of if-then logic in Python. It is very dependent on the use case and the kind of data you are performing the evaluation against and what the outcome of that evaluation ought to be. There are types of expressiveness now possible within Python that did not used to be. It allows you to be briefer, more elegant and eloquent. The context manager would be probably one of my favorite examples. So much packed into that word with. The with operator, with open, with SQL dict, as I use a lot for persistent dictionaries. It says a lot about file system or other type of hardware interaction, the opening and closing of connections. Yeah, so you may have noticed I'm in no hurry to get back to work. What am I? I'm 15 minutes into the video. I dropped off my kid after a weekend, and this drive around is because I don't need to get back and start working on some urgent thing right now, because I am, while not unemployed, I am between positions at the same company. There's an interesting story I'd like to tell, and I don't know how soon I want to tell it, because, the whole idea of jinxing things by talking about them as such, but they want me because of the excitement, the energy level that I have to infuse into the subject matter. What subject matter might I provide the energy level and expertise to help, raise, to improve their content, I guess. They're almost daily content. I could certainly make it daily content. We're talking SEO, the field of search engine optimization. I'm not really so well established in the other fields I might kind of sort of qualify for, like data science or data engineering, because data science implies maybe you got some PhD or at least a master's degree, and engineering implies you've maybe got some engineering degree. And while I do more of the later than the former, more of data engineering type stuff than data science, I am quite adept at all that stuff. I can extract, transform, and list. I can create, record, update, and delete with the best of them. So, separation of concerns, view, model. I have made many a system. I've made many a system over the years for many a need and many a purpose. And you feel somewhat invested into them because of the effort, the depth of yourself it took to create them. And you feel like perhaps you might not be able to do a creative endeavor like that again in your life, or too many times in your life. So my investment into the Amiga technology felt deep, felt very, very deep, and I felt very, very betrayed when the Amiga went away. It hurt. And luckily there were enough Unix/Linux-like things about this Amiga thing that when, the whole rest of the world started to consolidate onto it, I'm like, I know this is Unix, which is a line from Jurassic Park for those cinema geeks out there. And in the similar way that protagonist in that movie sat down at the computer and started using the interface, knowing what to do, that's kind of what you're going for, with your skills in tech. And it really is, at first glance, the boring stuff. But there's a certain old school power in it, and I would hope charm and appeal to be identified in its daily use. So I should just make daily use of it and share that. So I guess what I'm doing here is the car driving video before rebooting the Talking Head series. I'm just thinking out loud to myself, to you, my audience here, how best to use these 2 weeks that I have, today being the first of that 2-week period between wonderful opportunity, one of the best stretches of employment in my life, in role 1 in this company. Ziff Davis, by the way, wonderful company. I mean, maybe some of the other people I've been working with lately might not think so much as me, but those years in and demonstration of what I do and who I am, all that had not been lost on deaf ears, and they were not, blind to it. They stepped up for me. They, being the senior management of the company I work for, having made what I'm sure was a very hard decision regarding the department I worked at, looked at my situation in particular and said, hey, look, isn't this person, doesn't he have the very characteristics and attributes that we believe might be, valuable over here in this other place in our organization? There's some big ifs, there's some maybes, because maybe I'm not the exact right cure for what, the itch that needs to be scratched. But then maybe I am, and I certainly am going to dedicate considerable amounts of my energies into ensuring that perhaps maybe I am exactly the thing that this other group within Ziff Davis that has been kind enough to bring me on board needs. And I am going to get my act together communication-wise, get it real tight, what it is, my vision for things, my expectations in the industry, and come up with a playbook that anyone can carry out using tools that, mostly my very own little hands provide. Do this, run this install.bat script, which will set up Windows subsystem for Linux on your machine with Jupyter Lab running in this very unique Linux server mode, so that everything you do under Jupyter Lab is actually directly applicable to 24/7 Linux services known as daemons. And then you can make the step between what I call lost mode, right? When you're running Jupyter Labs, you have taken something that was perhaps not automated because it was in, say, maybe Microsoft Excel or with some manual process, and you've automated it somewhat using Jupyter Lab, maybe pandas, maybe writing CSV files, maybe even sending emails or whatnot. However, you have not made it run automatically every day. You have only semi-automated it. It will run whenever you hit the button in Jupyter Lab. So, while you're learning to automate things, the truth is you are only ever really learning to semi-automate things so long as your experience begins and ends at Jupyter Lab. What you want to do is to give the thing you're working on kind of a dual life. One life in the Jupyter notebook that you're looking at, where you can add documentation to help you remember what things are about, right? You can use the markdown features of Jupyter Lab to put inline documentation and start to explain why things are the way they are in your script. And then you can have other areas which are code that is exported as part of the package, a .py file that will be extracted from your Jupyter notebook using the NBDev tool, NBDev 2, which hopefully stabilizes on version 2 for a while. I was really thrown for a curve when they broke a lot of my stuff going from version 1 to version 2, changing the API. Changing an API can be quite an impactful experience for someone because your stuff breaks. So I adapted and I adjusted my stuff that I wanted to keep on NB, because now that I've been using NBDev 1 for a while and NBDev 2 is here, I now am a little bit more savvy. I have a little bit more idea between what I do want to use NBDev for and what I don't want to use NBDev for, and what other techniques are available at my disposal. For example, there's NBDev_clean for cleaning the metadata out of the Jupyter notebooks before a git commit and a git push, so you don't pollute your Git repository with a lot of IPython metadata nonsense, your view results stuff that's there in addition to the actual programming code. So I found a library that just cleans the notebooks, and I loop through a directory and I clean every notebook in that directory, and I do that on my practice directory, which is not in NBDev. So my practice directory will be becoming of more and more import. I think there's a hierarchical structure here of nicknames of what it is Mike's doing, right? So if it's like, what's Mike doing? Isn't Mike working for Moz now? Wow. Yeah, so the guy who made HitTail back in the day and has always been like this just, behind closed doors, internal SEO tool maker, infrastructure maker, or an agency person, producing the PowerPoints, giving the talks to the clients, working them through difficult technical projects. I will be working in 2 weeks from today. I will be a Moz employee. And they are, for people who don't know, probably one of the first companies, tool providing, investor-backed companies, SEO companies in the SEO field. Back in those days, it was Moz SEO. Over the years following, they dropped the SEO part of it to just Moz, and they have conferences, MozCon, and are an all-around, original founder of the field, the whole idea of having an SEO company that has tools. They created the domain authority metric, which, check with ChatGPT, they'll confirm with you that, Moz created that, and it is a highly used and referred to metric in the industry. Wikipedia removed the Moz page on the page on Moz. Wikipedia removed the page on Moz as the founder of domain authority. So that's interesting. I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything with that, but certainly part of what I will consider under my, in my interest is for Moz to continue to be one of the best, if not the best performing sites on certain terms. And there has been slippage of late, which I think can be directly attributed to that. I have plenty of experiences in my life where the loss of a single highly influential link like that, as no followed as it might be, right? Page rank, dampening or lossy link as it may be, it still can be profoundly influential. So I think there are other things that can be done, but I don't believe so strongly in just resuscitating. Now, there is something to be said for that. Let's breathe new life into things where new life can be breathed into things, by all means. But let's also create brand new hot stuff. Brand new hot stuff. The whole area of free and open source SEO software, I think, is wide open. I think that the opportunity for free and open source software, SEO software, now that Linux servers live quite nicely on the desktop of Windows machines, the time is now. The iron is very hot. And I have to simplify the message. And now with ChatGPT is like a nice co-pilot. Do I do the $20? It depends on how they, the downtime, right? That availability. They're selling availability. How interesting. Get a certain portion of the population completely addicted to having ChatGPT in their lives, and then dial back the availability, and then offer a per month paid prescription. Know that Elon was able to do $8 a month for Twitter Blue, and then sneak it up to $11 a month. And that's just for having a blue sticker on your tweets. I might get rid of that, right? And apply that $11 a month towards half of what ChatGPT is. It's a lot more valuable than that blue check. Go back to the 280 character limit, so what? It's not like I'm influential in Twitter anyway. So if you're not influential and you're not guarding some kind of already influential status, why pay for Blue? Why pay for Twitter Blue? When you could be putting that same money towards ChatGPT and having almost like a straight man co-pilot on all your content production work, on all your ideation. You have something you can bounce. You can actually bounce ideas off of it and get better feedback. Oh my God! So ChatGPT, let me just be 100% clear, is a far better choice by a large degree for introverts. Introverts would probably rather deal with the occasional wrong answer of a machine that cannot have emotions or feelings about things than the always right opinion of real human beings whose presence you need to suffer. And not that I feel that way about all human beings, but I think you get what I'm getting at. I hope you get what I'm getting at. The extroverts who draw energies from squeezing the lemons of the people around them have a challenge. They normally, such extroverts who squeeze the people around them as if they're energy juice, and often loved to do that with introverts who are honored just to be considered within the friendship circle of those extroverts. So that creates the gravity well. It's like, I'll be your friend, as introverted and weird as you are. Come to my parties, join my onlines, whatever. It's like, ooh, I belong. I interact with almost no one. I don't need the validation, I like to tell myself, but a little validation is nice, right? So, the attention-starved, craved little introvert puppies circle around and almost orbit of the extrovert types who let you into their circles, and it creates, cult-like cliques. And that's a common enough dynamic, because these information-starved puppies really don't have an alternative. Now, if you're an information-starved puppy who tends to go to drink from the teats of the fount of these people who proclaim to be the source of all knowledge, of which I know my talking style really projects that I'm one of those people, but believe me, I'm a slow learner. I'm 52. It took me, almost half my life to get to the point where I can talk to you with such authority about this topic and that. And it's not even authority. It's like, so far, here's what I know. And I always am keenly aware it's a 1-2 punch. There's a 1-2 punch out there that always should humble you and bring you back to go, I don't really know as much as I think I know. And the first is the problem of induction, which exists in both philosophy and science. And there's a lot of ways of saying it and a lot of misleading, ways of framing it. But the way I would frame the problem of induction for you is that you can only know those things which come to you through your senses. And your senses might be lying to you. You don't know. The feedback loops that are created through you taking an action and what comes back to you, through your senses validates or confirms that you took this action, and you can start to put together cause and effect. There's a tremendous amount of evidence stating that we live in an objective shared world, that there is such a thing as an objective common reality, but we don't know. We really don't know because of the problem of induction. No one in existence knows anything more than what their senses tell them. Now, machine learning actually helps us conduct some fairly interesting experiments. This is so interesting. I don't know if I've ever been down this route here exactly. So I go this direction. There's a lot of parks and a lot of waterfront. You're on an island. So there's both parks with little quaint little lakes, and there's waterfront area all around the island. So you can just kind of head out in any direction, and eventually you'll have to start turning. And so this was one of those points. And whether I'm driving along a park with a lake, I'm certainly in little back roads now. It's not more like the Poconos that I recently moved from. Shore Road. Let's go down Shore Road. Surely I'll see the shore. All right, so think. I remember like it was yesterday when there was no Google and Alta Vista was the interesting search thing. And I got into the field of SEO, search engine optimization, in those days because, as sensitive as it was to on-page criteria, I found that if you could control the on-page criteria 100%, such as with slicing and dicing source data and stylizing it carefully, the way modern static site generators, or SSGs, like Jekyll, that GitHub Pages uses, you could, of course there's no Jekyll, there's no GitHub back then, but by slicing and dicing data just so, you could control search. And then Google came along, and that still remains true. Just the rules changed a bit, because instead of extreme volatility to on-page criteria, it now layered in this dampened, influence by links leading to the page. So the game broadened. It became more of an off-page game than it used to be. So the slice and dice trick, I used it behind closed doors for many years for various uses, and I just lacked what it took to sort of make it mass popularity, and I don't think it could have become mass popularity in its current, in the form it was in, because instead of doing it the way everyone does today, with some series of, expanding transforms, template-driven transforms. There were still templates, but it had to follow the rules of XML strictly, using these XML parsers that could do transformations. It was XSLT, XML style sheet transform language. Oh boy, could you do some interesting things with the XML style sheet transform language. And I did lots of interesting things with it, but it was all too complicated and whatever, not scalable, whatever, excuse. I never brought these things to market. But I got to know a lot about site building, not just building the sites, not just the separation of concerns, but tracking systems. I made kind of a Google Analytics tracking system. More than once in those days, I made 2 or 3 different iterations at least of Google Analytics like tracking systems, and by that I mean it served up something like a tracking GIF or a JavaScript. JavaScript on the landing page is executed and sent back to Mama information about what led to that page load. So if it was a search hit, it contained the keyword data back in those days. Oh, the days before not provided. And fast forward through the better half of 20 years, and lots of life, lots of jobs, lots of relationships, and here I am just driving around Staten Island, kind of just completely at random, because I'm between one role and another. And this is a window of opportunity. And there are irons that are very, very hot. And I do indeed plan on hitting those irons while they're hot in this 2-week little window, in a way that I never have before been able to in my life, because I've never had my current set of skills like I do today. And contacts in the industry and followers on various social medias, and a readiness. It comes down to ability again. I want to flex my muscle in a public way, in video after video after video, which will not be terribly dissimilar to this, but instead of just driving around at random, I will be planted at a laptop, maybe in different settings, because one of my big advantages is I don't really need that whole big workstation setup. I'm reminded again and again quite how many monitors people have opened around them when they're doing this sort of stuff, and I'm like, no, just give me my little laptop. Just use the built-in camera and do some screen capture. I am definitely the anti-pattern of a lot of all of this stuff. Maybe in my new capacity with Moz, I might have to set myself up for slightly higher end podcasting or vlogging, whiteboarding. Am I going to be that new whiteboard person? Maybe. I don't have, or do I? Do I have any quirky affectations? Whiteboard Fridays with Mike. Twice the tech and half the quirk. Yeah, I'm full of quirk. Who am I kidding? I'm a quirky guy. But my quirks are genuine. I don't design it. I designed my Viminess. My quirk is Vim. out of the gate with something profoundly useful and profoundly simple. Make it something that's already set up on a Pipulate server as a service. Use the existing Jupyter Start program and /user bin, user sbin that I have already, starting the Jupyter Lab server the moment a command line is open. Do things the official Microsoft way and not necessarily the broader Linux way regarding systemd, and live with telling people they have to open a Linux terminal for their systemd services to run. Leonard Pottering, what's his name? The guy who wrote systemd is has been hired by Microsoft. And then suddenly systemd, not suddenly enough to satisfy me, but at some point systemd was added to Windows Subsystem for Linux. Of course, on the Windows 11 only version. And it was like, You know, for the longest time, it was 2/3 of the Windows community that would like to be using this WSL stuff for development was like, we can't get Linux graphics. We can't get systemd. The latest and greatest is just being used as a crowbar to move us along to Windows 11, which we don't want to do. You will eventually be on Windows 11 because eventually you're going to have to upgrade your hardware. There will be a time at which your old familiar Windows 10 user interface will be no more. And hopefully Windows 11 will be able to show left-right screen animations by then. Hopefully we'll be able to hide the clock in the lower right by then. But in the meantime, Windows 11 is, a clumsy substitute for Windows 10. And I ain't touching it until I have no choice. I mean, I am touching it from time to time because I had to draw that cool ASCII artwork of Alice. See, if you go to my site now and you scroll down a little bit, you'll see some ASCII artwork of Alice falling down the rabbit hole, reaching for the marmalade in particular. I'm not sure how many people will get that reference, but that's the moment I wanted to capture. And it's drawn, it's traced with ASCII characters around the picture that was set as the Windows 11 background image. Highly pixelized. I think I turned it to black and white, and then I turned it to low resolution, and I scaled that resolution up real big so that I didn't have precise edges. I only had blurred edges to trace. And then I used a combination of, forward/, backslash, tick marks, vertical pipes, minus sign, underscore, whatever, to trace the outline of Alice. And I think I have created some of the most unique Alice in Wonderland ASCII artwork on the internet. So I made sure in a few of the places I used it, I copyrighted it, but it's part of the visual appeal. I'm trying to lead with all the strongest visual appeal things of what I've done over the years that align to my latest mission, which is this Linux, Python, Vim, and Git stuff. So there's my reversible Mike Levin logo. There is the profoundly cool level of control that one has now over CSS, cascading style sheets. And I don't even use those SAS parsers or anything like that. I just edit I'm at the point where it's like, let me just edit the CSS. If things are in common between things, I'll manage. I am, in fact, a Vim user, so, being a jockey of, text files is my thing. So I don't need that parser, that fancy expansion search and replace parser that everyone seems to use for cascading style sheets complexification. What I've learned has been transformative in my CSS work. It has been the fact that attributes take min and max. You can do min and max. And that one of the units of measurement is actually view widths. So by doing, min and max, particularly min, where one of your values is in view widths and another value is in pixels, you can avoid using media queries. I bet a lot of this is coming across as blah, 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 blah. But, the time for web design, a little bit perhaps, is upon us, is upon me. SVG files are supported now better than I've ever seen them. So my reversible logo is making its little spinning rotation with a little springy Bezier spring in it. Totally with an SVG, a structured graphics file, which is still a text file, by the way, for the logo, and CSS to do the spinning. No JavaScript involved in that spinning logo. And all the sizes, that says a little bullet point between my first and last name, so it's Mike, logo, Levin, logo spinning in between. And it sizes really nicely between mobile and desktop with nice maximum widths that it hits on desktop so that you can still get the sense of the experience. It's really designed for a mobile experience, but it works perfectly well on a desktop browser. So these are things I am experimenting with now, and I'm trying to make my website have appeal again, right? Talk about old school, right? As much as things change, as much as the discussion gets moved into Reddit, and Snap takes over the attention span challenged youth, and YouTube celebrity remains a thing, and it's becoming mainstream enough that YouTubers merch is reaching stores in the mall. We are in a new era of celebrity where anyone can carve out their niche if they're saying or doing something in a brand new way, which is of broad public interest, that is oftentimes expressed in humor, which is the case in this YouTube series that my child has recently introduced me to. I think it's called Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. And it's a spoof on Sesame Street, but kind of gone dark with layered in messages. So sometimes it's quirkiness, and sometimes it's humor, sometimes it's entertainment value. Often it's entertainment value. Often. Hey, I'm coming up to an hour. It seems the last time I looked up at the time, it was only 15 minutes into it. This is one I can share with you. Metaphors in life. Jumping off a cliff and learning to fly. Jumping off a cliff and learning to fly. And all the various Icarus metaphors. Flying close to the sun. How close to the sun are you willing to fly before your wings start to melt? How do you live at that vibrating edge between where you can still continue flying for a good long while, but any higher and your wings are going to start to melt? Any lower and you're not being ambitious enough with your height. So that's a strong metaphor. There's a threshold at which we should all be trying to fly, risking it all falling apart, but willing to go there because the reward is worth it. This is the kind of thing I consider myself doing. I wouldn't have made that transition to the marketing world in New York City had I not had some level of risk tolerance. I was getting into a field that I knew deep down kind of found, reprehensible. Why did I then? Well, ultimately because I got into graphic design in college. And I got into graphic design because I couldn't cut it in engineering because of science, but really because of physics and calculus. First calculus 102 and then physics 101, I guess it was. The second course in calculus, the first course in physics, in freshman year 1 of a 5-year co-op program. I'm going to use ChatGPT to reboot my math career. It should know calculus. It should be able to describe it to me in so many ways until it has cornered off like a Mr. Meeseeks trying to teach Jerry golf to cut off whatever strokes from his game. I want to engage ChatGPT with that level of engagement to work me through my I don't even know what to call it. Math threshold. Math chasm. ChatGPT my way through my math chasm. Integrals and differentials. How symbols are used. Syntax. The syntax regarding the symbol use is very confusing to me. Traditional algebra almost handicapped me against things like differentials. Things mean different things, and you have to switch between different systems all the time. And none of them are intuitive, except Feynman diagrams. Feynman diagrams are intuitive. Everything should be Feynman diagrams. So I don't even think I'm learning anything about this whole driving around Staten Island. All I'm learning is that it's a big island. And that driving is exposing yourself to risk unnecessarily. And I have so much to live for. More than ever. And I want to calibrate and fine-tune my life now so that I will be enjoying the fruits of my labors more than I have traditionally in the past. I earn like a king and I live like a pauper. Which is usually the formula for saving lots of money, for a good retirement, and a good inheritance for your kid. That is not the case in my situation. Part of it's because I had to come back here living in New York City. Part of it is because I'm paying out a lot of money. As as a result of relationships I had taken up in my life. And so now I am on kind of a rat race, treadmill, hamster wheel of a sort. But it's all in your mindset. Everything that really matters is in how you think about it. I saw a video of Benny Hill, dying in a chair in front of a TV in a room in a rented apartment that was just a mess. And he had something like $10 million in the bank, or pounds, that went to, nieces and nephews who wouldn't even talk to him because his stuff was then viewed as crude or whatever. And I'm like, one, I do have a kid and I would like things to be good for them in particular. But two, enjoy some of the rewards of what you're doing while you're doing it. You don't know if there's really anything other than the now moment. You don't really know. It's so interesting. I'll probably drive through somewhere for some fast food lunch. Yep. Now officially over an hour in. Hey, if people can watch people do video game playthroughs, there's probably a place for this. Early 50s suburban kid from Philly. Eagles. Ugh. Following dreams, sort of. Following path of least resistance, sort of. Doing adjustments here and there. When, compromising dreams for path of least resistance results in suboptimal spiritual experience. Adjust path of least resistance so that some spiritual satisfaction can occur. So, SEO agency style went back to SEO in-house style, so you can practice craft again. And that very much became about falling in love with a new set of tools again and curating those tools down to the bare minimum, and then letting the bare minimum, Linux, Python, Vim, and Git, open out a bit again to include web browsers and Jupyter Lab and the occasional use of Node.js to do a variety of projects, to take on new projects, to carry them out easily, especially under Windows subsystem for Linux, you see, because you had a genuine, good enough Linux-like experience on now the mainstream, majority platform of Windows 10 and 11, of course, since recently, since only October of last year. We're only in February, so it hasn't been long. There's a McDonald's there, but I don't think I want McDonald's. I want to find a Wendy's or something. I don't know if there's going to be one, but where the heck do I have to go? This drive is really about this talk. This drive is about getting one of these talks, and I'm actually not going anywhere in particular. But I have not in my life just started driving in Staten Island and just gone and seen what happens. And it's time I did that. I really have no idea where on the island. Well, I do kind of know. I've seen signs for New Dorp. So I'm not even that far from, where I know already. It just isn't familiar to me because I'm not following any routes I traditionally take. So then I'm not familiar with it. Well, I'm not familiar with the routes I'm on, the roads, but some of the communities I've passed through and other trips. I'm really just rambling now. Such is life. 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 Think through specific next steps. Wow. What an unusual time period. I think I might just lay down and sleep, for starters. So long as I have a plan that I wake up to and hit with the excitement that would normally have kept me from wanting to go to sleep, but I can feel, you listen to your body, and my body's saying, get some protein into you. Douse that protein with some vitamin C. Sprinkle it down with some orange juice or something. Get some sleep in. Wake up to some caffeine and a list, an excitement, a motivation, an invigorating, motivation-inducing thing. Much like a list. Something that really lights the fire underneath of you. Something that scares you with an image of a vision that must not come to be, and some image of something that is what you would rather do more than anything else in life. So that is the carrot and the whip, not in that order. I described it as with the whip and the carrot, but you basically need to bracket a problem, even mentally, in your head. What are you avoiding? What is the disaster scenario that you would not like to see happen? That isn't actually a source of growth. That is, eluding you. If that's the case, then get on that kind of change and face your fears. But if it's something like, you are a natural introvert, and you are now comfortable with that fact, and you do not want to be coerced into the life of an extrovert managing accounts, like account management work, right? Like a lot of the traditional stuff that's done in agency life, right? I certainly don't want to get back into agency life of managing client relationships and deliverables and agendas. Instead, it's just like endless car dealers. The pandemic has not been kind on a lot of businesses. You need to get your shtick down. Schlemiel, Schlemiel, something incorporated. Follow your dreams. Even if you're gonna be punching a clock, follow your dreams. Ramp things up. Take things that normally would have had to have been a little startup. Do a tiny little product, a version of that product. Disintermediate, invalidate products left and right. Don't invalidate any of the products of the companies you work for, but prompt out of existence little piddle competitors by writing up the code that runs on the Pipulate server that just does that. You might have to wait a little bit of time. Well, Popeyes drive-thru, that's interesting, but that's not for me. Not in the mood for chicken. Use ChatGPT as your sidekick, helping bring things into existence. Make it take on a personality role as your familiar, perhaps, a talking familiar, something that's in tune with something from another realm. Start to make a story. Maybe carry on the story that you started out with ChatGPT regarding casting a powerful spell that changes everyone's perception about technology, coming to understand it's just part of evolution. At first, it's hard to understand how technology could be part of our evolution until you stop to consider that bones are technology that are part of our evolution. We weren't born, creatures weren't created necessarily having bones. Bones were found and incorporated in. To our bodies, scavenged from the environment, recognized as something useful, used in a certain way, then had that particular use of calcium codified somehow so that it continued being used that way through the generations. Technology gets incorporated into our bodies. External things become internal things over time. Not always, not in every case. But sufficiently such that you can look at a recurring pattern of external resources from the environment being scavenged, usually through the consumption process, taking things into our body, and then being used by the internal machinations of our body. For purposes other than what it was originally intended or designed. It actually, gets used somehow. And by being used in that way, it's now part of the blueprint, part of the potential blueprint, I guess is what we're saying. It's part of, I don't even know what I'm doing. All the cars are turning this way, so I'm going this way too. Well, I'm certainly learning something. This is not a place I enjoy just driving. There's speed traps everywhere, and there's nothing catching my interest that's like, yeah, I'd like to stop there. Jeez. I know how to get back home from here, so I'll start heading back home. I avoided spending the extra money on fast food I didn't need to. That's good. We're almost an hour and 20 minutes into this video. When next you see me, I should be rebooting a series. Booting a series. I can stop saying rebooting. It's not always rebooting. I'm booting new little series. This new little series will be an introduction to the Drink Me platform, the Pipulate server, for sure. 278 West. I actually am not sure. I'm probably going to make another pass at this because lost my bearings for a moment on how to get back, whether I'd be going towards the Verrazano Bridge or where I live. So I'm just gonna turn around somewhere here and just loop back and let my intuition work on that again. I think it's to the right. Yeah, from where I'm at, it must be that direction. Oh wait, that is east. We went west. Yeah, that direction. Oh, Verrazano next left, so we went away from... Yeah, no, this is right. This will be going west. I got it. So this is almost an hour and a half video. Almost as long as when I used to do my Poconos rides. This is just poking around the island just to see what's what. next thing up is definitely the email. Major Demo. Major Demo. It's like a daemon, and it's like a domo. So it's major demo. And it's a triple entendre because it's also a major demo. A major demo of a major daemon of a major domo. ChatGPT has some interesting filters and do they call them rules? But ChatGPT is bound from certain types of answers. It's bound from providing certain types of answers. And a lot of effort, I believe, has gone into making it safe. A safe environment. That about wraps it up. I've stopped talking. I don't even know where I'm going to end this video. I guess I play it right to the end. There's some diehards out there. I don't know. This probably becomes the fodder for AI in the future to edit worthwhile videos out of. So in the spirit of wrapping it up somewhere, thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon, and I'll join you in talking head format, doing some really interesting stuff with Major Demo.